I'm of Iranian descent. I was born in England. My father was in the diplomatic corps, so my parents moved around a lot. As such, I moved to Switzerland, Pakistan, South Africa, Iran, and then finally to the US in 1978 for high school, at which point the revolution happened. When the revolution happened, we stayed here, and my parents came here. And aside from having lived in England again and Italy, I've been in the US for almost 30 years. At best, I'm a designer. I'm a designer who has designed buildings, furniture, industrial design products, landscapes, urban design, and many other things, but even graphic design. Why is it that an architect or somebody who practices architecture is collaborating with a potter? It is very simple. Most work that we do culturally, but also in the arts, is collaborative in nature. Most people tend to think that their vision or their singularity is compromised by somebody else's fingerprints on it. I tend to think differently because I think because of circumstance, chance, you get to catapult certain lines of thinking as a result of it. That's really what I thought was good about this. I don't think I could have ever imagined or done something like this if it was not in the context of a collaboration with a potter. Now, it's very different, of course, to be a potter than to be a potter who builds buildings. So our challenge in working with Adam was first to understand his medium, his techniques, and his intellectual priorities, and then inhabit his shoes to see, well, what can we do to contribute to that at a scale that's environmental? Because it's very different to do a vessel than to do multiple iterations of a vessel or some artifact that produces, in this case, a landscape. A lot of the original discussion we were having with Adam was, what does it mean to do an installation here in Silicon Valley? And, he was thinking of, what if we take fragments of silica? What if we take recycled material and incorporate it into this? In other words, take the waste matter of the things that are produced in this valley and then reconstitute it for this thing. That's a great idea. But essentially, the turning moment of this installation had to do with an understanding of what potters do. Potters turn, ceramic artifacts. They produce plates, cups, vessels, pots, vases, and so forth. And they can get a certain silhouette as long as they respect the circular and the spherical. As it turns out, and as their nails and their hands grope and hold these things, it produces horizontal strata. So the turning has something fundamental to do with a stratification of these vessels. Now, these can be smoothed off and all of that, but something fundamental about the medium is this stratification. Then when you learn further what Adam is doing with these things, the dipping and the finishing of these things, they produce other strata. And you can see that in the blacks, the honed finishes, the glossy finishes, and the acid-etched finishes and all of that. You have to talk to him for the details of those things. But they produced other horizon lines on these vessels. Our introduction of the cut was really to produce yet another horizon line within this landscape of this valley, which produces two types of artifacts. One is called the hoop, and the other one is called the dome or the nipple. And effectively, these two landscapes are intertwined to produce what for us is a foreground, a middle ground, and a background within the gallery. And the landscape never looks the same from any point of view, just like the natural landscape. So the calculation and the production of almost a organic environment, which is totally calculated, was part of the intended effect of this piece. Well, this particular piece it generates a kind of peripheral circulation. So you're pushed to the edges of the gallery, and in a way you're a captive audience, much like if you were in a train on the edge of a valley, and you're forced to perceive this from the edges. Given a different space, you may be amongst the different vessels between them, because the space between them can be much farther. But obviously there's something at stake here, is to produce an effect that's larger than the sum of their parts. Much of our work is at the intersection of new school and old school techniques, because nothing is totally digitized yet, and in many ways nothing can be done without the intervention of the hand. So this project in many ways is also mapping that intersection. We have an imprecise medium in the construction of these cast elements, but we also have a way of arranging them, a way of cutting them that is highly, dimensioned. It's quantified. To be fair to the audience, actually the level at which we're operating on Boolean geometry is the lowest level. Because one of the hardest things to do, I suppose, in that context is to intersect, let's say, a sphere with a pyramidal form. We are not doing that. We're simply taking a plane and intersecting it with the dome shape. So the title is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's using the lowest hurdle by which these kind of effects can be made. We're speaking to multiple audiences. We like to speak to architects and historians and to artists at one level, but that is not to patronize or to speak down to the general public, because I think the appreciation of art should operate at many levels. More than anything, I would hate if you look at me or my word to cast authority over a dominant interpretation over this piece. So, yes, there were important discussions that Adam and I had. Yes, we have certain intentions. Yes, there are certain techniques that are very precise about this. But they're not an end. They're means to broadening the discussion.